So in this video, I'm going to talk about shoulder impingement syndrome. So this is something which, physios treat a lot, surgeons do a lot of things with, and it's basically been known to be a very prevalent problem in shoulders. Some people report 70% of all shoulder pain is shoulder impingement syndrome. But this video is talking about the fact that this might not even be a condition. It might actually be not what we think it is, and the pain therefore isn't caused by impingement at all. And this throws obviously a lot of issues around the way physios treat shoulders and also how surgeons go about dealing with these type of problems. So the first thing is, what is impingement supposed to be? Well, impingement is basically where there is a physical impingement structurally between the acromial process and the humeral head and what's between it, which effectively is the supraspinatus tendon and the subacromial bursa. So you would therefore get rotator cuff tendinopathies, rotator cuff tears, rotator cuff ruptures, bursitis, and so on. So it makes logical sense in this regard. So the thing is that the question would be, is impingement a thing or is it normal? Now the first thing is they did a study where they looked at movements of the shoulder joint, and they were looking at people who had pain and people who didn't have pain, and they were looking at if basically impingement was seen under movement. Was there a squash in that area? And the answer was yes, there was a squash, and the squash was the same. So the impingement itself was in both groups to the same extent. So what this can make you think is impingement is normal. So the shoulder joint is designed to be impinged. It's designed to squeeze in this area. A bit like if I bend my elbow, I'm squeezing stuff in here. I'm not going ow, and if I do this lots of times, I'm not going ow either. So certain things are designed to be squashed. I mean, when you're walking around, your meniscus in your knee is being squashed with incredible forces. No one says I've got impingement of the meniscus. They go, well, it's designed to take that load. That's what it's there for. So is there not a reason that this area does this? Well, the answer could be maybe. Obviously, we still don't know with certainty. The next thing is that people would scan and look at the bursa, for example, and go, well, the bursa is thickened, so that's signs of impingement, and therefore we need to resolve that problem. The trouble is, again, in another study, they looked at people who had pain and who didn't have pain, and what they found is that the bursas were just thickened in pain-free people if they were exposed to certain levels of training. So again, is it just not normal, a normal adaptation of the bursa to do with load? A bit like if you go working on a building site, you get calluses on your hands from your skin adapting to the load. No one would say, my hands are injured. They just say, well, yeah, my skin's thickened in response to the demand, and therefore that could be the same with the bursa. The other thing is that a lot of surgeries are done to try and correct it as well. So like they look at doing an arthroscopic subacromial decompression where they shave the edge of the bone off to give more space. So there's no impingement. The trouble is the surgery, if it was all mechanical, would be 100% effective, and it isn't. It's actually not all that effective. And what's even more interesting is they've done studies again on this where they have done a placebo-ish version of the surgery. Basically, they've kind of pretended to go in because it's arthroscopic keyhole, and the other group compared to the real surgery. And they found that there was no differences between both groups, which lends to the thought that it's very much more placebo-driven, even if it is effective in an individual. Now the other thing is that to do that surgery, you've got to believe that the acromial process is actually catching on the bursa or the tendon, creating the pain. Well, again, this is another problem again in more research. They looked at people who had shoulder pain, or rotator cuff tears to be more precise, and they looked at the correlation between the shape of the acromion, because there are different shapes, some which are theoretically more likely to be impinging because there are some that slope up, some that are more here, some that are more here, some that hook down. So the hooked acromion would be one where you think, whoa, they're going to catch, they're going to impinge because there's less space. But they found zero differences between people who had rotator cuff tears and their acromion shape. The acromion shape made no difference whether they had pain and rotator cuff tears or not. So that's another thing. And the other thing is they found that where rotator cuff tears occur isn't where impingement would occur or does occur. So it doesn't even stack up with that idea either. So it's very interesting, and this makes us now think, well, if that's designed to impinge and therefore impingement is not necessarily why they're in pain, what is causing their pain? And this is where we've got to go back to the drawing board a little bit and think about it in a little bit more depth. But it's very interesting, this group of studies which are highlighting that maybe physio's approaches on this aren't correct. Maybe we're on the wrong page completely. Therefore, surgery stuff is on the wrong page completely. I mean, I've seen people who've had that surgery done and found out by treating the neck, it was the neck causing referred pain into the shoulder. And all the while, it wasn't impingement and shoulder pain at all. So it's not always what it seems. And again, these are more studies which are just changing the game and changing the perspective over what we think we know. But the reality is, what we think we know, we maybe don't know. And it's another interesting concept. So anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time.